Hello, my name is Sanka, and today I'm going to talk about prototyping to launch global products. This is a photo of London, the last international trip I took with Houzz, a global online community for home remodeling and design. In London, I had a chance to visit local architects, builders, and designers to understand how they work and also share some of the prototypes of products we're working on today. Later in this presentation, I'll share with you some of the key learnings we had from that trip. To start with, I want to explain why prototyping is important, how you can start prototyping, and also how to scale your prototypes globally. To understand why global prototyping is important, I want to start with an example. This is an early prototype of the Houzz website. The Houzz founders in 2009 were trying to remodel their home and realized that there needed to be a better solution. They were currently ripping out pages of magazines to get design inspiration and asking their friends and family for referrals for local professionals. One of the things they decided to do was build an online website for homeowners and professionals to start sharing their idea books and other design inspiration. This quickly became very popular across the Bay Area and scaled to other places including Chicago, London, and New York. They realized that there was traction behind their prototype and raised funding to continue growing this company. Today, Houzz is in over 10 countries and has a community of over 65 million homeowners and 2.7 million home professionals. You can see the Japan, the Spain, and the US site here. Much more modern. So how did they get from point A to point B? Today, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how prototyping can really help you understand your customers and get your product around the world. One of the key frameworks that really values prototyping is design thinking. Coming out of the Stanford D School and also advocated by a number of companies, including IDEO, design thinking starts with customer empathy. One of the most important components of design thinking is really understanding your customer pain points and their jobs to be done. Once you've been able to define the customer pain points and problems, you can bring in the right group of stakeholders together to start ideating. Once you come up with a large quantity of ideas, it's important to figure out which ones are the best and have the biggest impact so that you can start prototyping. The most important thing about prototyping is sharing it with real customers and testing your assumptions. Once you're able to put your prototype in front of customers, you can learn and ideate additional new prototypes. Another popular methodology is Lean Startup, coming from Eric Ries. In this particular methodology, it's really important to build a prototype that can validate your business assumptions. Once you're able to build your prototype and launch it in the wild, you can measure key performance indicators to determine if this is a product that customers really want and are willing to pay for. By learning through qualitative and quantitative feedback, you can continue to iterate on your prototype and build the best minimum viable product to launch your business. With these frameworks in mind, how do you start prototyping? As you're starting early prototypes, it's really important to come up with a number of ideas from a large group of stakeholders, create prototypes that can validate those ideas, and test with real users. In an ideal world, you would be able to spend a whole week doing a design sprint and testing and validating your assumptions. However, in larger organizations, this can be broken up into smaller modules where you spend some time coming up with ideas, voting on your ideas, building your prototypes, and also testing on user testing days, which can happen once a month or once a quarter. Starting off with the ideation phase, it's very important at the beginning to bring together all the stakeholders for your product. For example, some of the most common folks that could help you build and improve your product include design, engineering, marketing, sales, user research, and customer service. At the very beginning of the ideation phase, it's important to keep in mind that there's no bad idea. A common mistake is assuming that quality is more important than quantity. However, it's very important in the ideation phase to come up with blue sky ideas and get your creative juices flowing. It's helpful to build on the ideas of others and defer judgment till the end. It's better to fail early and often as opposed to later after you've already put months of design and engineering towards building a product. It's important to think about the user and their pain points, and if your solutions are able to adequately address those pain points. Once again, it's great to go for wild ideas, and then later you can prioritize the ideas with the most impact. A couple of my favorite ways to ideate include Crazy Eights and Copyhat. In Crazy Eights, what you will do is take a piece of paper and fold it in half again, and fold it in half a third time. You'll then have a different rectangle on each fold, and you'll be able to set a timer for 8 minutes and ask everybody in the group to come up with 8 ideas to your customer's problem. At the end of the 8 minutes, folks can review their ideas and pick their best ideas to create a storyboard. Then they can share these storyboards with the group, who will then vote on the top ideas that they want to move forward with prototyping. The other big design thinking framework that can help a lot in ideation is copyhats. In copyhats, you put on the hat of different companies or people in order to come up with wild ideas. It's helpful to come up with different perspectives on how to solve a problem so that you're not constrained by the current variables. For example, let's say you want to build a dating app. You may think about how would Google do it or how would Snapchat do it? And you may come up with very different ideas thinking about how would Elon Musk do it versus how would Kylie Jenner do it. Once you have a big list of ideas, what you can then do is review them and prioritize them based on impact. Once you've prioritized your ideas, the next step is building a prototype. It's important at this phase to make it quick and make it the simplest solution that can validate your assumptions. My favorite tools here are paper and pencil. It's great to create very simple, low-fidelity prototypes that don't take too many design or engineering resources to build. One that I really love is this 3D printer that's made out of cardboard. If you're building a hardware product or want to validate your ideas without actually doing mechanical engineering, it's helpful to create some of these in very low fidelity so that you can test your assumptions and know that this is something a customer actually wants before starting to build it. One of my favorite online tools is called Balsamiq, and it'll let you create very low fidelity wireframes very quickly for mobile apps or desktop applications as well. You can also make little videos to explain your idea and see if there's traction for it. A really good example is Dropbox. When they first launched, instead of building their product, they actually created a few short videos to explain their value proposition. Their first video garnered about 5,000 signups, and their second video, which was a humorous explanation of their company shared on websites such as Dig at the time, garnered over 75,000 signups in one day. So it is very helpful to create minimum viable products and very low fidelity prototypes to make sure that your customers are really excited about your product before you actually start putting design and engineering toward it. As I mentioned, the most important thing is to test your products with real customers. It's helpful to develop key insights through testing with global customers and also iterating on your product. Depending on the size of your company, you can test in a number of different ways. At a smaller startup or where you have less budget, you can recruit friends and family or even go up to folks in a coffee shop and ask if they'll spend 5 or 10 minutes with you going over a prototype. At larger companies, you can work with design or user research to recruit participants to come into the office to do one-on-one interviews and focus groups, or also use online tools such as UserZoom or user testing. For $50 to $100, these companies will recruit participants from around the world, whether it's UK or Australia, based on your demographics, whether it's gender or age or platform. For example, you can get iPhone, iPad, Android, or laptop users to test your product. Within 24 hours, you'll get immediate feedback on your prototype, and then you'll be able to iterate much more quickly. A really good example of early testing of a product is Airbed and Breakfast. So this was the original Airbnb website. Interestingly, the founders had a hypothesis that strangers would be willing to pay to stay in their apartment. In order to validate their assumptions, they created a very simple website and saw that 3 strangers were willing to pay to stay in their loft for a design conference in San Francisco. From folks to Boston to India, they were able to make money from their early prototype and then fundraise to build a company that's in over 190 countries today. Moving on to how to scale your products globally, the most important thing to remember as you build your product is to listen to your customers. As a product manager, it's good to make sure that you're talking to your customers every week, whether it's one-on-one interviews or prototype testing sessions. It's very important to hear what your customers love about your product and also their biggest challenges with your product. One of the key stakeholders that is really helpful in an organization to understand the voice of the customer is your sales and customer success team. They talk to your customers every day and will have insights and patterns on really understanding what are the key things, once again, your customers love about your product and what are the things that they are really having issues with. That way you can make sure that you're prioritizing the most important features in your roadmap. Finally, marketing is a great partner to get an understanding of what your customers like and hate about your product. Marketing can really help you understand your value proposition and then also communicate the value of your product to customers. They may be using channels like email, videos, or social media to explain your product to customers and really increase adoption. They're also getting a lot of feedback or help requests from customers that they can share with product managers for you to continue to iterate and improve your product and your prototypes. As you think about building global products, one common mistake that folks may make is that they think that the only thing that needs to happen is localization or translating from one language to another. While German may have twice as many characters as English in many cases, the most important thing is not just to translate your landing page to German and make sure that the buttons fit the text. You really need to look below the surface and think about the culture, the geography, the population, the data availability, and the legal regulations in that country. For example, GDPR and European privacy regulations may stop you from launching certain products in Europe, or geography or how homes are built in different places around the world may impact how your product functions. A couple of really great examples are on this slide of how companies have addressed globalization. At the top of the slide, you can see an early version of the Uber app in India. Uber was originally launched in the United States, which is a very credit card heavy economy. However, when they went to India, they decided to launch a pilot program in Hyderabad to accept cash for payments. In India, only about 2% of the population has access to credit cards. Therefore, by creating a way for users to book a ride on their phone but paying using cash, Uber was able to replicate this pilot program in all cities in India and make over $1 billion in revenue in their first year. Eventually, they spread this cashless payment system to other countries, including Latin America, and now this feature is available in over 50 countries. Another great example is Apple. When the iPhone first came out, you had to pay a very expensive fixed sum to purchase the phone or go through a cell phone carrier. When they launched the iPhone internationally, they realized that a lot of countries allow for installment plans, especially for expensive items. Today, you can pay for an iPhone or a laptop from Apple from 3 to 24 installments, both internationally and in the US. By being able to offer these services and learning from the way that they're scaling globally, Apple and other companies who prototype these new business models and these new interfaces can really help improve not just US products, but also global products. Reflecting on my experience in London, where we shared prototypes with different clients, there are a lot of things that are universal, and then there are also a lot of things that are country specific. In this particular trip, I shared many prototypes with different home professionals for ways that we could understand a homeowner's budget for a remodeling project. We originally launched a product in the US that asked the homeowner specifically what their budget was. We had data from our econ team of different ranges for different home remodeling projects. However, we were unable to get that data in all the countries that we work in today. What we discovered was that a lot of homeowners in the US and internationally have no idea how much a home remodeling project should cost. And even if they did, are often unwilling to show their cards and say, this is my entire budget. However, professionals want to make sure that they are matched by our matching algorithm with the homeowners that will be willing to pay for their services. One of the prototypes that worked very well was actually very simple. We just asked homeowners, what type of home remodeling project are you hoping to do? A $1 sign to a $4 sign home remodeling project. Professionals loved this idea because it helped them understand if a homeowner was looking to do a $2 sign project or a $4 sign project. Especially for high-end home remodeling companies, they may be less excited about a customer who is unwilling to pay for luxury. Therefore, we were able to come up with a really great solution that was scalable globally as well. Depending on whether we are using dollars or yen or pounds, we were able to replicate this throughout all the countries that Houzz currently works in. Overall, I want to emphasize that prototyping is very important to building great, scalable global products. As you're building products, remember to start with ideation and starting with a large number of ideas. It's really important to focus on quantity originally so that you can come up with blue sky ideas that have big impact, and then you can later prioritize and refine those ideas to move to prototyping. In order to prototype, make sure that you're starting with low fidelity, minimum viable products. That way, you can fail fast and continue iterating quickly before you're spending months on engineering or design. Finally, before you launch products, especially at a very interconnected world, remember to test on a global scale. Make sure that you're testing with a number of global users and leverage your sales, customer success, and marketing team to ensure that you're building products for a global world. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you the best in building great products for a global audience.